Hello everybody, Elias5891 is at a drawing class today, so filling in it's Timwe with another KTANE module tutorial. Today I would like to show you a new module that was published recently, and it is called Puzzword, and this is what it looks like. It has a lot of mystifying and interesting symbols on it. What do they all mean? Let's get straight into it. Let's begin by taking a quick look at the manual, especially the first paragraph, which summarizes what we even need to do. The module displays a set of symbols which represent constraints on a set of 6 values from 1 to 26. Disarm the module by determining the correct values that satisfy all of the constraints, converting them to letters using A1Z26, and entering the letters. Sometimes there are 2 pages of constraints, but I'll get to that later. So right now I've placed a module in the bottom left corner of the screen, and let's go straight into it and take a look at how this is solved. So the first screen on the top shows you a symbol with another symbol inside and a symbol on the right. What are all of these symbols? We have a diamond, a square, and a down pointing triangle. Well, the diamond refers to the 6th letter, the square refers to the 2nd letter, and the triangle refers to the 3rd letter. No, it refers to the 4th letter because it's upside down. What does that mean? So I'm going to refer to the letters as A, B, C, D, E, F. So the first letter would be A and then B, etc. So this deals with Bravo, Delta, and Foxtrot somehow. So let's take a look at this here. It's one of these 3 where the symbols are side by side, and it turns out it's this one because the left one has one of the symbols sort of smaller, right, this one here. So it says the larger left variable, so that would be in this case the diamond, which is the larger of the 2 on the left, modulo the smaller one, the one that's inside of it, so the diamond modulo the square, so that would be Foxtrot modulo Bravo, is equal to the variable on the right, which is delta. So this is our first constraint. We now know a relationship between Bravo, Delta, and Foxtrot. Let's take a look at the next one. Now this one is interesting because it has these tiny little symbols, I, O, X, and colon. And it turns out that these are digits that express numbers in base 4. So in this case, we want to read the top number first. That is a 1 and a 2, as you can see here. And 1, 2 in base 4 is, of course, 4 plus 2, which gives you a 6. And then the other number consists of an x and a colon. Well, the x is the 3, the colon is a 0, so we're looking at 3 times 4, which is a 12. Now, what do we do with these numbers? Well, it's going to be one of these 2 here, where the constants, the numbers are written horizontally, but we need to check which one of them is the larger value. So the larger value here is of course the 12, which is at the bottom, so we're looking at this one. There is a variable whose value is between the specified bounds. Right, so one of the variables, whether it's A, B, C, D, E, or F, has a value between the specified bounds, so between 6 and 12. It doesn't tell me which of them has it, just that one such value exists somewhere. Next, we have a circle superimposed with an up-pointing triangle, and then a number inside of it, which is written vertically, because the colon is on top, and then the circle, which represents the number 2, is on the bottom. Alright, so the circle and the up-pointing triangle, of course, are A and C, Alpha and Charlie. And the number inside is written vertically. So let's find this kind of arrangement, and we find this is the one, where we have 2 symbols superimposed. It just happens to be the exact same symbols as we have here, just with a different number inside. But obviously this could also have the square, the down-pointing triangle, any of the others. The difference between the variables is a multiple of the constant. Alright, so Alpha and Charlie, the difference between them is divisible by the constant, meaning the number inside of it, which is 2, because it's 0, 2 in base 4. Now, why do we have a leading 0? Why doesn't it just say 2? Well, the reason for that is because then you couldn't tell whether the number was written horizontally or vertically. In fact, it says here that if it's a single digit, you're supposed to assume it's this one. And so in order to be vertical, it uses a leading 0 to make it 2 digits. So that is our third constraint. Next, we have a diamond and a plus sign. We have not seen these before, but there is nothing special about those. This is just echo in Foxtrot. Oh, we have seen Foxtrot before, my bad. Then we have a number on top, which is OIX, which, after translating using this code here, is 2, 1, 3. And then converting from base 4, we get 2 times 16 is 32, plus the 4 is 36, plus 3, we get 39. Now, what does this arrangement mean? This time, the number is on top rather than inside, and it is written horizontally. So let's take a look at this. That is the arrangement that we have. The constant, which in this case is the 39, is the sum of these variables. So echo plus Foxtrot is equal to 39. Next, we have a single symbol with no superimposed symbol, and we have the number written on the left. So let's first see what the symbol is. The symbol is the 6th letter, so that's Foxtrot. And the number is, well, it's either x:(I) or I:(X). Well, let's take a look at this. And we will see here that it says the constant is written from bottom to top. So we need to read it from bottom to top. We get 103, which is, of course, 16 plus 3, which is 19. And now let's see what this means. It means a variable further left than this variable, has this value. Okay, so that means that something further left than f, so that would be any one of these, is equal to 19. Okay, next we're looking at this one. We have a down-pointing triangle and a plus sign superimposed on each other. The down-pointing triangle, of course, is delta, the plus sign is echo. And then we have the number written underneath. Well, let's take a quick look at the manual. And it says here that if you have two superimposed symbols and the number underneath, then the constant is written upside down. So that means we need to read them from right to left. So instead of writing this as OXI, this would be IXO, which of course is 132. And that gives us 16 plus 3 times 4, which is 12. So 28 plus 2. So this is a 30. But what does this mean? Well, the constant is the product of these variables. Now, okay, so delta times echo is equal to 30. Next one, we have an up-pointing triangle with some kind of hollow hourglass in it. So this time, the hollow hourglass is not one of these symbols here. The down-pointing triangle, the up-pointing triangle is. So we're looking at Charlie, but then we have these constraints here. Each of these have a sort of specialized symbol on their own. So we're looking at this one here, and it says no other variable is greater than this one, which is another way of saying that this one has the greatest value. But the reason it is phrased like this is to make it absolutely clear that it could have the same value as another one. So it doesn't necessarily stand out as the greatest, but it is one of the greatest. All right. Now, that gives us 7 constraints to work with, and those constraints should be enough to solve this puzzle. So I'm going to try this right now. I'm going to call each of these variables a, b, c, d, e, f. And let's see. Well, if delta times echo is equal to 30, let's see how many ways there are of decomposing this. It can't be 1 times 30, because every value is always between 1 and 26, because at the end we're going to turn them into letters. So we can't have a 30. It could, however, be 2 times 15, it could be 3 times 10, and it's not divisible by 4, so we can't have a 4. It could be 5 times 6, of course, and I'm going to put a new line here. And then after that, the next one would be 6 times 5, so it's just the same as those 3, but reversed. So that means there are 6 possibilities for the letters, for the variables delta and echo. So I'm just going to write them all down. So for each of these possibilities, echo has the other one. and that takes care of this for now. Now we notice that none of these variables is 19, right? So we can already cross off delta and echo here. So we need to remember that one of those three is equal to 19. Okay, so what's the next thing we can do? Well, we know that echo plus foxtrot has to give you a sum of 39. So obviously, if you subtract echo from this equation, you get foxtrot is equal to 39 minus echo. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to move that up to the top already. So foxtrot is going to be 39 minus 15. Well, what is 39 minus 15? That would be 24. 39 minus 10 would give you 29, which is already too large. And all of the others would give you an even larger number. Remember, all of these have to be 26 or less. So all of these possibilities are out of the question, and we now know these values for definite. Okay, now let's see what else we can do. We know that foxtrot modulo bravo is equal to delta, so 24 modulo bravo is equal to 2. So obviously bravo can't be 1, or 2, for that matter, but bravo could be 22, for example. Let's see, so 22 would work. That's the obvious one, it's just two less than that. But I'm sure there is, oh yeah, so for example 11 would also work. So basically any factor of 22 that is greater than 2 would also work. And since 11 is a prime number, that's the only one. So bravo is either 11 or 22. In fact, here is one way that you can convince yourself. If you take this equation and subtract 2 from both sides, you get 22 modulo b is equal to 0. And now you can see what this is essentially saying is that 22 is divisible by bravo. So bravo has to be a factor of 22. Okay, so with that out of the way, what else can we do? Well, bravo is definitely not 19 now, so we can remove that. So that leaves only two possibilities for the 19, and we know that the difference between alpha and Charlie is even. So now we know that both of these values are odd. I don't know if that helps us very much. Yeah, that might not help actually. We do need a value between 6 and 12. Well, 11 would be between 6 and 12. But none of the values that we've had so far are between 6 and 12. So I guess at this point I'm going to make a hypothesis. Let's see what happens if alpha is 19. And then Charlie obviously has to be odd because the difference between alpha and Charlie needs to be divisible by 2. And Charlie also needs to have the greatest value. So it could actually be 19... No, because we have a 24... Charlie has to be greater than 24, or at least as big as 24. And we know that it's odd. So it has to be 25. That's the only thing that Charlie can be. And that leaves only alpha to be the 19. There we go. So this is how you can logically deduce all of this. So all of this we've taken care of. And now we need this to disambiguate bravo. Because if bravo was 22, then we wouldn't have any values between 6 and 12 at all. So bravo has to be 11. In order to accommodate that. So now we convert this to letters. We get Sierra, Kilo, Yankee, that's Sky, Bravo, Oscar, X-ray. We get Skybox. Now let's see how to enter this answer. I'm just going to enter it the naive way, which is to click on the first screen and then cycle to the letter. But you can easily see that this takes a lot of cycling. But you may have noticed that now I'm at Kilo, so if I click next screen, it starts at Kilo again. So I could, in theory, set all of these to Kilo, and then I can still change them later. But what I think is the most efficient way is to do them in alphabetical order. So, now I can jump to the O, and then here I can put the X and the W, and we have Skybox. And after 5 seconds, this will automatically submit, and it's solved. So with that module solved, let's take a look at another one. There are plenty of other modules on this bomb. I'm going to go with this one. This has another set of 7 constraints that we're looking at. So let's get going. Okay, once again I've placed the module that we're looking at in the bottom left corner of your screen, and let's go through all of these constraints in order. The top one has a circle and a plus sign, so that would be alpha and echo. And on the right we have an up-pointing triangle, which is Charlie. And then the manual tells us that if the left two are superimposed, as they are here, then we're looking at the sum. So when the variables are added, you get the variable on the right. So this says that alpha plus echo is equal to Charlie. Next, we're looking at a square and a plus sign. So we're looking at Bravo and echo. And on the left we have 1, 1, which is of course 5 in base 4. So let's take a look at what this means when the constant is on the left. We're looking at this one. The constant is written from bottom to top. That doesn't matter in this case because it's two of the same digit, but it's important to keep in mind. The constant is the variable with the greater value divided by the other. Okay, so the variable with the greater value divided by the other. So what this is saying is that it's the quotient. So it's either b divided by e is equal to 5, or e divided by b is equal to 5, whichever is greater. Okay, next one. We have another plus sign and we have a down pointing triangle, so we're looking at delta echo, and then we have ix on the right, which is 4 plus 3 is 7. And as explained here, this is the absolute difference of these variables. What does that mean? Well, it's the difference between them, so delta minus echo, and then the absolute value of that. Which means that, for example, if delta is 12 and then echo is 5, then that would give you 7. But it could also be that delta is 5 and echo is 12. That would ordinarily give you negative 7, but absolute value means that you remove the negative sign. So we don't know which way around they go, but the difference is 7. Next one, we have a down pointing triangle and a diamond. So we're looking at delta and Foxtrot this time. Then we have 1, 0, 3 inside. 1, 0, 3. That is 16 plus 3, so that's a 19. Okay, and we're looking at the number written horizontally inside of the symbol. So that would be this. The constant is horizontal. If it's a single digit, then that also applies. If it is multiple digits, it can be written vertically, in which case it would be this constraint. But we're looking at this one now. The constant is numerically between the variable's values, exclusive. What does this mean? Well, it means that whatever value delta and Foxtrot would have, the 19 is in between them. So it's either like this or like this. Again, we don't know which way around delta and Foxtrot go, but it's one of those two. Next, we have an up-pointing triangle, which by now we know is Charlie, the cross is echo, and the number on top is 1, 0, 2. So that's 16 plus 2, that is an 18. So what does that mean? The constant is the sum of these variables. It's just that. Charlie plus echo is 18. Next we have the bow tie symbol. Now we had the hourglass symbol last time, but this time we had this one last time. This time it means that this variable has the smallest value, and as you can see it's the square, so we're actually looking at Bravo. So Bravo is smallest. And finally we have an up-pointing triangle and a diamond, that's Charlie and Foxtrot, and inside of it we have a vertical number, ix or xi. Well, let's take a look. It says here the constant is vertical, so it goes from top to bottom. So we're looking at 1, which is 4, plus 3, so that's another 7. And it says the difference between the variables is a multiple of the constant. So the difference between these is divisible by 7. Now, another way of looking at this is to say that Charlie modulo 7 is the same as Foxtrot modulo 7. It doesn't matter which way you represent this. I like to think of it like this. Okay, so that's all of the 7 constraints decoded. Now let's see if we can find the values of a, b, c, d, e, f using these constraints. Here we go. So first of all, if Charlie plus echo is 18, then obviously both of them have to be less than 18. What else? Bravo and Echo have... bingo. Bravo and Echo are a multiple of 5 of one another. So one of those is 5 times the other. So that means that, if one of them was 1, the other one would be 5. And if one of them was... actually it could be 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that 25 is the highest you can go. So one of those two is going to be just 1 to 5, and the other one is going to be one of these. But we don't yet know which one. If we can figure out that Echo is the larger one, then that would restrict it to just 5, 10, and 15. But we don't know that yet. So let's see, what else can we deduce? Alpha plus Echo is... Ooh! Alpha plus Echo is equal to Charlie, and Charlie plus Echo is equal to 18. Aha, look at this. We can use this as a system of equations to also find a relationship between alpha and the number 18. Alright, so let's take this. Let's subtract these two equations. We get alpha minus Charlie is equal to Charlie minus 18. Put the Charlie on the other side, you get alpha minus 2 times Charlie. And now let's negative both of these, so we get 2 times Charlie minus alpha is equal to 18. Alright, that was not as fruitful as I was hoping. Yeah, I don't think I can make use of this just yet. So let's just keep that around. Aha, okay, so here is something I just realized. It says that Bravo is the smallest, and we know that these here have to be Bravo and Echo. So of course this one will have to be the Bravo and this one will have to be the Echo, otherwise Bravo will not be the smallest value. So with that consideration out of the way, we now know the possible values for Bravo and Echo. And we also know that Echo is less than 18, so it can only be one of those 3 values. And we also know that Charlie is going to be 18 minus Echo, so that would be 13, 8, or 3. Okay, so that's that taken care of. And also alpha plus Echo is equal to Charlie, which is the same as saying alpha is equal to Charlie minus Echo, so we never even needed that. So alpha is Charlie minus Echo, which in this case would give us 8, but in both of the other cases would give us a negative number. So that is not possible. So now we know alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Echo for definite. We know that the difference between delta and Echo has to be 7. Well, it can't be 7 less than this, so it has to be 7 more than that. So that's a 12. And finally, Foxtrot. Now that we know that delta is less than 19, Foxtrot has to be greater than 19. So it's either 20, 21, etc. up to 26. But it has to have the same modulo 7 value as Charlie, which is 6. Right? 13 modulo 7 is equal to 6. Well, 20 modulo 7 is also 6, and the others are not, right? So 20 would be 6, and then 21 would be 0, and then you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 26. So this one is the only one that matches that. So that gives us all of the values, and now we can easily translate this into letters, and we get the word Hamlet. Now this time I'm going to try and submit them in alphabetical order. So I'm going to start with the alpha, then Echo, then Hotel. So we have A, E, H in these positions. A, E, H. Let's do that. Okay, so the next letter is the Lima, and then Mike, and then Tango. And as you can see, that went quite a lot faster than last time when I tried to enter Skybox. And it was the right answer. Now let's try and look at another module. Now you will notice that some of these modules have a little sort of square here, whereas the other two had a single big rectangle. What this means is that there are actually 2 pages of constraints, and you can click the top button, like that, to switch between them. Now in the majority of cases, the second page has only a couple more, but this one is a relatively extreme case where you have 11 constraints. But just because there are more constraints, it means that there is more to read out, but the puzzle itself is not necessarily harder. In fact, it may be easier because you have more sort of restrictions on the numbers. So let's try this one here, which has a lot of different constraints on it. And once again, the puzzle we're looking at is now in the bottom left corner of your screen, and we start straight away with the top screen. So we have the cross is of course echo, the small one, the circle, is alpha, and the big one is the up-pointing triangle, which is Charlie. Right? It's these. And what does that arrangement mean? Well, it means the larger value on the left, variable, modulo the smaller variable, equals the one on the right. So echo modulo alpha is equal to Charlie. There we go. Next, we have two numbers which are both written vertically. The one on the left is 100, which is a 16, and the one on the right is 21, which is of course 8 plus 1, so that would be a 9. Let's find out what this means. If it's written vertically, it's got to be one of these two, but it turns out that the one on the right is the smaller value. So this is the condition that applies. One of these values is present, but not both. Aha! So we either have a 9 or a 16, but not both. So one way to say that is to say XOR. So I like to write it that way. Okay, now let's look at the next one. Now you might think this is just a cross, but don't be fooled, because there is actually a square inside of it. So we're looking at echo with a smaller bravo inside of it. So echo and bravo. And then on the right-hand side of that, we have 1, 1, which is of course 4 plus 1 giving you 5. So let's see what this constraint means. Well, it's two symbols superimposed, but one of them is smaller. So it's not this one, it's this one. The larger variable, which in this case would be echo, modulo the smaller one, so modulo bravo, equals the constant. So that is equal to 5. By the way, this instantly tells you that bravo has to be greater than 5. Right? Because if bravo was 5 or less, then this value would be smaller than 5. Next, we have a square with 3, 2 on the right. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. A square with 14, alpha, no, it's bravo, with a 14. That would be this one here. A variable further right than this one has this value. Well, further right than bravo, we have Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Foxtrot. So one of these has to be a 14. Then we have the diamond, which is of course Foxtrot, and inside of it we have the circle, which is alpha, and there is no other adornment around it, no other sort of digit or constant. So let's find out what that means. This is with a constant inside. I almost looked at the wrong one. This is the right one. The smaller variable's value is less than the larger one. Okay, so in this case that means alpha is less than Foxtrot. Now you might argue that because the inner thing is a circle, it could also be interpreted as the digit 2, which is also a circle. And we do have a constraint like this one, where you would have a circle inside, or rather this one, which says that it could actually be a single digit. However, I think if you look at this one in comparison, there are plenty of other digits to look at to compare the sizes, and notice that this circle is considerably bigger than the digit 2. Next, we have a vertically written 113, which is 16 plus 4 plus 3, which is 16 plus 7, which is 23. What does that mean when it's written vertically? Well, let's look at this. It says two of the variables add up to this value. Okay, so a sum of 23 exists somewhere in the puzzle, but we don't know which two variables it is that add up to that. We have to find that out. Next, we have the square, which is of course bravo, with a number on top, which is this constraint. The variable's value is greater than this constant, so bravo is greater than, that is 2, 1, so 8 plus 1 is 9. Bravo is greater than 9. Next, we have the fourth letter, which is of course delta, and the value on top means delta is greater than that. So that is exactly the same one as this, just with different symbols. So we have 30, which is of course a 12. Then we have the circle, alpha, with a filled-in house inside of it. That would be this one. This variable is not a square number. Alright, that's not a square. This one is also not a square. I'm just quickly going to write that down because it's exactly the same type of constraint. Then we have the up-pointing triangle, which is a Charlie. And on the left of it, we have 3, 3, which is 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15. And what does that mean when it's on the left? Well, it's this one here, a variable further left than Charlie. So that's alpha or Bravo. One of those is 15. This one here is delta, and the filled-in hourglass says that it is that another variable is greater. So that means this one is not the greatest. There is another one that is greater. Right, and then we have the cross, which is echo, with a small diagonal cross inside of it, and that says the variable is a prime number. Okay, so as I said, this is quite a lot of constraints to read through, but now that we have the constraints, let's see if we can solve this puzzle and figure out the values of a, b, c, d, e, f. Okay, let's start here. Echo is a prime number. There aren't many prime numbers between 1 and 26. We have 2, 3, 5, 7, then we have 11, 13, 17, and then of course 19. 21 is not a prime number because it's divisible by 3. Then we have 23, and 25 is also not a prime number. So these are the only possibilities for echo. And in particular, this means that echo cannot be the 14, so we can remove echo from consideration here. Okay, we know that delta is greater than 12, so delta is 13 to 26. But we also know that it is not the greatest value, so it can't actually be 26. And I suspect it's not going to be 25 either, because then something else would have to be 26, but it's still possible, so we can't rule it out just yet. How about this? We know that Bravo is greater than 9, so it has to be at least 10. And we know that echo modulo Bravo is equal to 5. That means that echo can't be a small number that is not 5, right? Echo could be 5, but if echo was 2, 3, or 7, then no matter which of these you modulo it with, you would get 2, 3, or 7. So we can discount those possibilities. The same is true of 11, right? If Bravo was 12 or anything greater, the answer would be 11. And for 10 and 11, the answer would be 1 and 0 respectively, but never 5. So we can't have 11 either. Can we have 13? Well, let's actually write this down, right? 13 modulo some number has to be equal to 5. How can this be? Well, if Bravo was 14 or more, then it would definitely be 13. If it was 13, it would be 0. 12 would be 1, 2, 3. So it's never 5. So we can discount the 13 as well. Let's think about the 17. Well, now there is a possibility. If you have 17 modulo 12, then that would give you 5. So if echo is 17, then Bravo would have to be 12. If echo is equal to 19, then 5 less than that is 14, so that would give you a modulo of 5. And so would any other factor of 14. So for example, 7 would, but we know that Bravo is greater than 9. So in this case, 14 is the only possibility. Similarly with 12, it could be 6, but 6 is also not greater than 9, so we can discount that. And then finally for 23, if we take that modulo 18, we would get 5. Right? Any higher value here would give us 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then 23, all the rest. So it would have to be at most 18. But could it be a factor of 18? Well, so the largest factor of 18 is of course half of it, which is 9. So once again, 9 is not greater than 9. So it can't be that, so that would have to be an 18. So now we know for each of these values of echo, we know what Bravo has to be, except in the first case. So let's hope that we can rule out either that case or all three of those, so we can come back to that later. So just as a point of reference, right, if this is 5, and then that, now Bravo can be literally anything. We know that it's greater than 9, so it's certainly greater than 5. And then any value of that will give you that. So here Bravo could be anything. Okay, so we've taken care of this. I suppose I can at least write down that it would have to be greater than 9. Okay, so in those 3 cases here, alpha would have to be the 15. And in this case, we don't know. Right? This could still be any value. Echo modulo alpha would have to be Charlie. So 17 modulo 15 is of course a 2. And then here we have a 4. And then here we have a 8. 23 modulo 15 would be 8. So Charlie would have to be one of these, which is most certainly not 14. But Foxtrot can still be 14. But it can't because alpha is less than. Bingo. Okay, so since alpha is less than Foxtrot, that means Foxtrot in those 3 cases over here, Foxtrot would have to be greater than 15. But then it says we have to have a 14 somewhere, so that would then have to be the delta. Alright, so right, I'm just gonna write this as greater than 12, and then in all the other cases delta would have to be the 14. Aha! Now we come to this one here. None of these values is a 9, and we need one of those values. So Foxtrot would have to be the 16 in all cases. Oh my gosh! Foxtrot is not square. There we go. So Foxtrot is not the 16. So I suppose I should have paid attention to this earlier because it said 9x or 16, and both of them are square numbers, so we knew that it was not going to be f. I might have even mentioned that. But anyway, that means that we know all of these possibilities here are discounted because all of them result in Foxtrot being 16. So we now know that echo is definitely 5. Right, and we know that echo modulo Bravo is 5, which we've taken care of because we know that Bravo is greater than 9. We've taken care of echo is prime because we now know that echo is 5. Oh, look at that. Now that we know that echo is 5, 5 modulo anything can never be greater than 5. So Charlie can definitely not be the 14, because now we know that Charlie is less than or equal to 5, so it's less than 6. Okay, we know that one of delta in Foxtrot needs to be 14, so let's see what happens if Foxtrot is the 14. Then alpha has to be less than that, so that would be less than 14. And also not a square, yeah, that doesn't mean much. Right, now since alpha or Bravo have to be 15, that would then have to be the Bravo, and that would take care of this constraint. And now where do we put the 9 or 16? We can't put it in A because A is not square. We can't put it in B or E or F because those are not 9 or 16. And it can't be in C because that's less than 6, so D would have to be the 16. And that would immediately tell us, because D is not greatest, that something else has to be bigger than 16. And none of them are. Look at that, this is less than 14, all of them are less than 16. So we've now ruled out the possibility of Foxtrot being the 14. Right, so Foxtrot cannot be 14, because that's what the hypothesis was. So that means that delta is the 14. Alright, we figured out which one it is. So that means we've taken care of this. Now where do we put the 9 or 16? We can't put it in alpha or Foxtrot because those are both not square. We can't put it here because that's less than 6, and neither of these is 9 or 16. So this one, which has to be greater than 9, must be the 16. And we've taken care of that. Now one of alpha or Bravo has to be 15. Since we've just determined that Bravo is not 15, that has to be the alpha. And now we can determine what Charlie is, because 5 modulo 15 is of course 5. So that's that taken care of. And now we get to this interesting point here. We know that, Alright, we already figured out that D is not greatest because alpha is already greater, so we can get rid of that. Alpha is less than Foxtrot, so Foxtrot has to be 16, 17, 18, etc. So which of these values can give us a sum of 23? Well, obviously if we add any of these to something that is 16 or greater, we're way off the mark. So it has to be 5 plus something, and 5 plus what gives you 23? It's obviously the 18. So ladies and gentlemen, we've solved the puzzle. So now converting these into letters gives us opener. And again, I'm going to try to enter these in alphabetical order. So we're gonna do Charlie and Echo first, which is this and this. These are both echoes. And then we move on to the delta, which is a November. And the rest is in alphabetical order. 14, 15, 16, well, almost. Right. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's that. And then we want the N here, November. N-O-P-Q-R. And that is the right answer. Okay, let's try another one of these. I want to try one that has, let's see. Yeah, I think let's try this one. This looks interesting. All right, let's go through the constraints in order. At the top, we have a down-pointing triangle with a up-pointing triangle inside of it, so that's delta with a Charlie. And then we have the circle, which is of course alpha. And as before, this means that the larger modulo the smaller is the one on the right. So delta modulo Charlie is equal to alpha. That already promises to be interesting. Then we have the cross, which is echo. And inside of it, we have a vertical 1, 0, which is 4. And I'm just going to write down this next one, because this means that echo is largest. Right, that's this one here. So the vertical number is this one. This variable's value is not divisible by the constant, so E is not divisible by 4. Okay? Then we have the same thing that we had up here, delta with a Charlie inside, and the variable modulo the smaller one equals a constant. This is, in fact, look at that, that straight up tells us what alpha is. So we get 2 times 4, that is a 9. So I guess I can already write down that alpha is going to be a 9. And we've taken care of, we've basically taken care of this one, because this is now equivalent. Alright, next one. We have Charlie and Foxtrot superimposed, and on the bottom we have 2 with 3 zeros. Right, now this is the product. I'm sure that, there you go. You can see that here. So this in base 4, well, you know what? I'm not even going to calculate this. This is going to be 2 times, and then 4 times 4 times 4. So it's just going to be a power of 2, isn't it? 2, 4, 6, 7. This is 2 to the power of 7. Right, you know, I'm going to write it like this, because I can. Alright, so Charlie and Foxtrot are definitely both going to be powers of 2, so that's pretty limiting. So that was this one. Now we have the square is Bravo, and the cross inside of it means that is a prime number. Then we have that, so we have the Bravo with a Foxtrot inside, and the top reads 1, 2, which is 4 plus 2, so that's a 6. And we're looking at this constraint here. The Base-10 Concatenation. Aha! Now this is interesting. What does that mean? So the Base-10 Concatenation means that you take the two numbers and write them right one after the other. So for example, if Bravo is a 12 and Foxtrot is a 15, you just write them like that and you get 1215. Right? But if Foxtrot is just, let's say, 5, for example, then it's just 125, not 1205. You don't have zeros in there. So this is an interesting one. So what does it say about the concatenation? It says that it is divisible by the constant. So the concatenation of Bravo in Foxtrot has to be divisible by 6. So that was this one. then we have a vertical 2, 0, 0, which is 32. And vertical means that two of the variables add up to this value. So we have a sum of 32 somewhere. And finally, echo has a value underneath, which, as you can see here, means that the variable's value is less than this constant. So echo is less than this. And remember that when it's on the bottom, it is written upside down. So we have 1, 1, 2, which is 16 plus 4 plus 2, which is 22. Okay, so let's see if we can solve this puzzle. We already know what A is. That was relatively easy. Now B is a prime number. What are the prime numbers? We have 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, and 23. These are the prime numbers between 1 and 26. I hope I didn't miss one. I did miss one, the 19. Good thing I went back to check. Okay, so we know that delta modulo Charlie has to be 9, and Charlie has to be a power of 2. Ah, and this obviously means that Charlie is greater than 9. Alright, so what powers of 2 are there that are greater than 9? There's only 16. Before that it's 8, and after that it's 32. So Charlie is definitely a 16, which means that delta modulo 16 is equal to 9. And how is that possible? Well, delta would have to be either 9 or a multiple of 9 away from 16. So for example, 25 would work. So delta is either 9 or 25. Right, obviously if you add another another 16 to this, you're way above 26. Yeah, so we've taken care of that. Since we know this, we can now calculate what Foxtrot is. You see, 16 is 2, 4, 8, 16. That's 2 to the power of 4, which means that in order to get 2 to the power of 7, we need 2 to the power of 3. So Foxtrot is 8. And that takes care of that. And now we can do this. The concatenation of Bravo in Foxtrot has to be divisible by 6. So which of these numbers here, when concatenated with an 8, is divisible by 6? Alright. So first of all, in order to be divisible by 6, it would first have to be divisible by 3. Right? So you can determine that by looking at the digital root. If the digital root is divisible by 3, the number is divisible by 3. Digital root here, that's 10, that's 11. I know that's not the digital root, but you just add up the digits and that's enough, right? So this was 12, so that could be it. In fact, that is divisible by 6, so that's a candidate. This one is not. Let's see, this is, nope. This is 9 plus 3, so that one is divisible by 6. This one here is 4 more than the previous, so that doesn't work. This is divisible by 6, and this is not. This gives us 13, which is 4. Okay, so we have 3 candidates. Bravo is either 5, 13, or 19. Excuse me. There we go. Okay, now how do we find out which one it is? Well, it has to... Oh yeah, no, we've already got that. Well, it's probably going to be this that's going to disambiguate this. But let's first see if we can... Oh, look at this. E has to be the largest value, but less than 22. That means delta can never be 25, because that would make that larger than echo. So delta is actually the 9, and that takes care of these, I guess. Well, not quite, because E still has to be largest, which means it has to be at least larger than, or at least 16. But it also has to be not divisible by 4, so it's at least 17, so it's greater than 16. Right, and now we are going to go on the hunt for the sum of 32. Right, so, can anything add up with 16? No, because that would require another 16, so it's not that. 9 plus what gives you 32? That would be 23. So in that case, echo would have to be a 23. Let's write that down as a possibility. Same here, obviously. In order to form something... Oh, wait a second. We know that echo is less than 22, so it can't be that. And this would require 24, so it's also not that. Okay, so it has to form a sum of 32 with one of these. And again, this can't be the 5, because then that would have to be a 28, which is way too much. And 32 minus 13 32 minus 19 gives you 13. Wait, yeah, 13 is right, and then echo would no longer be greater than 16, because it has to be the greatest value. So it's not that either, it is a 13, which means that there's some that this is a 19, and we've done it, and we've got an India, a Mike, this is a Papa, India, this is a, what is this? This is an S, and an H. We get the word impish. That is interesting. Now the smallest letter, of course, is the H, and then the two I's. So let's try to put that in. Alright, that's that. And then we have an I. So next we have the Mike. And then Papa is before Sierra. Impish. And by the way, the submission can always be cancelled by just pressing the screen at the top. So if you make a mistake or something, you can press the screen and just start again. It will always go back to alpha when you do that. Alright, so we have, whoops, there we go. There is, I want to do this. Alright, we have I, impish, so the M is next, and then P, Q, R, S, impish. Alright, that was that puzzle. Now let's see if we can find another one that has a constraint on it that we haven't covered yet. I'm going to quickly peruse this. Let's attack this one here. Let's go. So the first constraint here is a Charlie with a 3, 3, which is 12 plus 3 is 15. What does that mean? That means a variable further left than this, which is either alpha or bravo. So that gives us that gives us only two possibilities for alpha and bravo. This here, of course, is bravo with a vertical number inside. This is 1, 0, which is 4. So what does that mean? Well, that would be this one here. This variable's value is not divisible by the constant, so that's not divisible by 4. Then we have a vertically written number, which is this one here. Two of the variables add up to this value. We've had that constraint before. So we have 1, 3, 3, which is of course 16 plus 3 times 4 plus 3. 16 plus 12 is 18, plus the 3, 28, excuse me, plus the 3 is 31. So I think that's a 31. So we have a sum of 31 somewhere. Then we have a delta and echo superimposed, and underneath, because this number is written upside down, that's a 3, then a 2, so we have 3, 2, which is 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 2 is 14. So that's a, whoopsala, that's a 14. And what does this mean? It means that the constant is the product of these variables. So multiplying these gives you 14, and I can already tell you that this is either 1 times 14 or 2 times 7. There are no other ways to decompose this because 2 and 7 are both prime numbers. Next we have Charlie with an echo inside, and then we have one with a number underneath and one with a number on top. So let's see, the one with the number on top is 4 plus 2, that's a 6, and the one with the number underneath is a 2 and a 3, so that's 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. Let's see what those mean. Underneath means that the base-10 concatenation is not divisible. Okay, so not divisible by 11, that's what this number was, but it is divisible by 6. That's interesting. So it has two constraints on the same number here. That's pretty cool. Now this is one constraint that we haven't seen yet. It's simply the number 16, but it's written horizontally. And what this means is simply this value is not present. So there is no 16 anywhere in the puzzle. Then we have this one here, which is Bravo and Charlie with a value on the right, which is this one here. So we have the absolute difference between these is equal to, well, that's the number 2. So they are 2 apart. Then here we have Alpha and Bravo with Bravo inside, but with no number around it. So it's this one here, which says that Bravo is less than Alpha. Okay, then we have Alpha with this fat X, which means that Alpha is not prime. By the way, not prime doesn't mean the same as composite, because this means that alpha could still be 1. Now, in this case it can't, because Bravo has to be less than it, but I'm just pointing out that this by itself doesn't imply that A can't be 1. And then finally we have this square, which is Bravo, and the number is 103, which is of course 16 plus 3, 19. And having a value on the right means there is a value further right, so Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, one of those has to be a 19. Okay, so with those constraints decoded, let's see if we can figure out what the word is. Oh, I forgot to write this. This is the base-10 concatenation that we want here. Alright, let's start with the one where we determined that there's only few possibilities. Delta times Echo is equal to 14. So that means that delta is either 1, 2, 7, or 14, and then echo has to be the other one, 2 and 1. We also know that one of these values is 19, and obviously it can't be the delta or the echo at this point, so it'll be Charlie or Foxtrot, but we don't know which one yet. Okay, so if Charlie is 19, now the difference between Bravo and Charlie has to be 2, so this is either 17 or 21, and it has to be less than alpha, so alpha would have to be even bigger than this, but at the same time one of them has to be 15, so that is not possible, right? Obviously if Bravo can't be 15, alpha would have to be 15, but then Bravo is not less than alpha anymore. So now we know that Charlie can't be the 19. So the 19 actually falls onto the Foxtrot, and we've taken care of this constraint. We need the concatenation of Charlie and Echo to be divisible by 6, so we can actually already surmise, deduce, that Echo must be even, right? Because obviously that has to end with an even digit. So Echo cannot ever be 7 or 1. So those can go away. So it's got to be one of those two. So let's see what happens if we just assume that Bravo is the 15. If Bravo is equal to 15, then of course it is also not divisible by 4, so we can just get rid of that. And now we know that the difference between Bravo and Charlie is 2, which would mean that Charlie would have to be 13 or 17. Which now we can easily verify these. So we either have 13, 14, 13, 2, 17, 14, or 17, 2. Which of these is divisible by 6 but not 11? So 7, 8, 9, right, that's not even divisible by 3. So 4, 5, 6, this one is divisible by 3, this one is divisible by 3, 6, 8, this one is not. Right, the sum of these digits is 10. Okay, so that would mean that Charlie could not be 17. If anything, it would have to be 13. But this is 11 times 12, so that is actually divisible by 11. So in this case, if Charlie is indeed the 13, then Echo couldn't be the 2, because that would make Charlie Echo divisible by 11, so Echo would have to be the 14. So this would be all of the values, and now we need to figure out a value here that is greater than 15, so it's at least 16, but it's not 16 itself, because there is no 16. And we need a sum of 31, so we can figure out which values we would need to make any of these 31. Well, it's obviously not this one, that would be 30. This would be 16. This would be 18, and this would be 17. Okay, so we know that it's not 16 or 30 or 12, so it's either 17 or 18. But then we know that A is not a prime number, so it can't be the 17. Alright, that gives us a possible solution. So let's turn these into letters. Romeo, Oscar, Mike, Alpha, November, Sierra, Romans. Now, we didn't completely prove that this is the right answer, because we took a stab at where the 15 would be. If we had checked alpha being 15, then we would probably have found a contradiction. Now, you can still verify this for yourself if you want, but the thing is, if you find a solution that doesn't give you a sensible word, you can be pretty sure that's not the right one. And even if you're unsure, you can always just go through all of the constraints and just see if your numbers satisfy them. And if they do, then it must be the right answer. Alright, so we're going to put in Romans. So this is going to be the A, and then the next higher number is the M, the Mike. Right, so let's see. Mike, November, Oscar, Romeo and Sierra. Romans. And that is the correct answer. Okay, with that, I believe that I've shown you enough of the module. All the rest of the constraints that we haven't visited are basically the same principle. You can just read them up in the manual. There are no other gotchas or tricks to it. So I hope that you'll have fun with this module. It is definitely a very difficult module because you get these constraint solver puzzles and you have to puzzle it out. And I hope that you will enjoy this. I personally enjoy these puzzles tremendously. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, feel free to contact me on Discord or drop me a line in the comment section below if you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time for another KTANE module tutorial. Until then, please don't explode.